So I want to talk about Joe Morello because,
okay.
You turned me on to Joe, and he was your teacher. And there's definitely some things you passed on to me that obviously is coming from Joe, a certain kind of relaxed technique that I get comments on all the time. And I don't, it's not something I think about when I play anymore. It's just a natural thing. And I really, owe it to you, of course, and Joe. And you pointed me to Joe after a while, and I took a couple lessons with him, and then I revisited him again. He's a fantastic teacher and drummer. I've seen him play live, and the sweetest guy, and just wonderful. So Joe, you were a student of his. Tell us about Joe Morello.
He's from New England, and he studied with Joseph Sepchik was his first drum teacher, the local drum teacher, and then he went to Boston and studied with George L. Stone. And then he went to New York. I think he played with Tal Farlow for a while, and some other people, and Miriam Portland, he played for a while, and then he got in with Dave Brubeck, and I wound up, I think it was a 12-year run with Dave Brubeck, and they recorded the Take 5 album, and he did the drum solo Take 5, which was world famous and really established odd time signatures, I think, for jazz music and for drum soloing. And he was amazing because he was so humble. I remember getting very confused because when I first came in to see him, I was already a successful drummer. I was already on Broadway.
When was this? Around what year?
This was Superstar.
Jesus Christ Superstar, that show.
Superstar was 1970.
Okay.
And I think I'd taken one lesson before I went out on a road show. And
why did you feel like you needed to take a lesson at that point, since you're already?
Oh, that's a great question. All right. This is what I came to. I was 24 years old, and I wasn't getting any better. I wasn't getting any faster. I was practicing 3, 4, 5 hours a day, and I was getting worse. I was getting tired. And then I would look at Buddy Rich, who was at the time in his 60s, and he was playing 3 times faster than me, twice as long. And I looked at all these older guys playing, and I'm saying, when I'm 60 years old, am I going to be able to play anymore? I'm not going to make it. I'm going to have problems and physical problems.
So you were sensitive enough to feel that, like, you're physically struggling at a certain point.
Yes, I was physically struggling with and I was very diligent about practicing all my life. And I was getting blisters and blood blisters and all kinds of stuff. But I was very successful. You don't need good technique to be successful. You just need to have an ear and to have something to say. And so I managed to get into Broadway shows and make good money. So Joe looked at me and said, "Well, what are you doing here?" He said, "Well, I want to learn to play like you." And he said to me, "What do you want to learn to play like me for?" As if that was ridiculous.
Huh.
And I said, all right, I'll play like me, but I want your hands. Just give me your hands and I'll play like me. But he was so humble, he couldn't understand why anybody would want to emulate him as a drummer.
Well, that's a good message, though, because he's instilling, finding your own voice, yet
yes,
he's going to give you the technique, but you got to find your own voice in that.
Well, he thought I already had my voice. He said, "Wow, you're doing great. What do you need me for?" Which was really true. I mean, I could have gone on and continued to make a living, but I knew in my heart that I was in trouble, and I needed to make a change, and so I trusted him. It was pretty frightening because I was playing rock and roll, and I couldn't play one stroke. I was devastated. After 12 years of playing the drums, he started me at the first notch on the metronome, 40, on the first page.
On the metronome?
Yeah, 40 on the metronome, which is the lowest mark on the metronome, as slow as you can go. First page in the book, first exercise. He showed me how to do it, and I couldn't do the first exercise. One stroke I couldn't do after 12 years of playing. And I said, wow.
Must have been a whole new way of thinking and playing.
Total 180 from what I was doing, and
that can hinder.
Well, it did. At first, it did, because I could. He told me to practice this way, but don't be concerned about it on the drum set. Just play normally the way you normally play on the drum set. But what happened is that as I'm practicing this other way, I wasn't prepared to play that way yet, and yet I stopped practicing the other way, so my technique was degrading the way it used to be. So there was a transition point there where I couldn't do what I used to do, and I couldn't do what I wanted to do yet. But I had to live through that, and it was faith in Joe that got me through that, because I wasn't even sure I could play rock and roll that way. You know, I mean, that's jazz technique, which is ridiculous, of course, because technique is technique and music is music. But that's not the way I saw it. I saw it as like, oh, I'm whacking 2 and 4, and you know, he's telling me to let go of the stick.
Right.
So, wow, how's that going to work? You know, so for about a 3-month period, I was in limbo, and my faith and love for him is what brought me through. And no other teacher, I think, could have done that for me, that I had that much faith in, to give up my stuff and put my career on the line.
I want to tell you a little something about Joe, my experience.
Oh, yeah,
okay. I remember it was in Irvington, New Jersey or something.
That's
some
right.
music store.
Dawn and Kirshner's music store in Irvington, New Jersey.
And it was a funky place upstairs, I remember, you know, and Joe was there, and, you know, Joe's, he's basically blind, right?
Legally.
Yeah. And so, anyway, I sat down on the drum stool, and he had me read from a book, and I don't even know how he knew the page, because he could barely see it. And I'm like, how's this guy going to give me a lesson when he can barely see, you know? He's got to be led here and there. And, well, yeah, he said, okay, do this exercise. And I'm look, or just do this for me, you know, and I started playing. And the first thing he did was push my elbow, and to see and feel how loose I was. And if I was loose, everything was cool. And he really focused on that. He wanted me to be loose. He wanted it. And then he started to get into accents and how you can use your arm almost like a whip and stuff like that, you know, and that was shed some new light on that stuff for me. But he was the most, you know, just sweet, gracious, generous guy, and funny, and had a really, you know, great personality. You know, he's really, really a wonderful guy. And so that was great, and I could see where you got all that stuff from.
Well, he showed me how to teach. He was the example of what a teacher should be.
Yeah.